Good morning. I must confess to be delighted to be back here at Gethsemane. I look over the group and see lots of familiar faces and remember some of your names. Have mercy on me. I was just confessing that my forgettery is often better than my memory, but I have very warm feelings toward Gethsemane. It must be about 10 years ago that I came out here to do an interim, and I was invited to be here for up to 90 days. It turned out to be 19 months, and that was a very good time for me. I really appreciated getting to know many of you and being here in the congregation, and I'm delighted to be back with you again this morning. And thank you for being here to deal with this issue. And what I plan to do today, I call this testimony time, and it's a sharing of my own pilgrimage in dealing with this question. And I'm sure we have a diversity of opinion in the group today about it. And I've often said to people when I meet with groups like this that whatever your opinions, whatever your personal opinion is, I've probably had it. Because going back over many decades now, my mind has certainly changed on this subject. And what I want to do today is to give a little testimony of that personal pilgrimage. And I want to begin by a couple of confessions. One is a confession of the fact that I am a heterosexual. I did not choose to be a heterosexual. Like most of you, I discovered that there was, for you men here, that there were, when I was in my early adolescence, there was something interesting about girls I hadn't thought about when I was 5 years old. And you women have, I think, something similar to say about your interest in boys. I did not choose that. I discovered it. It was something that was given to me. The second thing that I want to confess is a confession of my ignorance. I grew up thinking that everybody was heterosexual. As I got into high school, I learned that there were people involved in same-sex stuff. But I thought they were just kinky or oversexed or something. I had absolutely no understanding of sexual orientation. And it's interesting as I think back on that. I went to St. Olaf College, Luther Seminary, did graduate work at Luther Seminary, and I don't recall ever having anybody clearly explain to me what sexual orientation is all about. Maybe I missed that day, but I doubt it. We just didn't talk about it. I'm reminded that during the time I was here on this interim at Gethsemane, I had a number of wonderful visits with Pastor Lasse Stoll. And I remember he shared with me one day that in all of his years of ministry, he had never knowingly visited with a gay or lesbian person. Now that's not criticism of him at all, because we didn't talk about these things. It wasn't discussed. So I remember one of the first times when I, at first unknowingly, I'll tell you a little story. I was a pastor in Farmington, Minnesota. I'd been there for just a few years, and two young men came to visit with me. And their concern was that this one guy was so jealous of his friend. If his friend went to a movie with somebody else or whatever, this guy was so distressed and upset that he contemplated suicide. This was a very serious business. And I recommended to him that he meet with Dr. Nagabads, who was the psychiatrist in the Dakota County Mental Health Center, a person I'd gotten to know. And he agreed to do that. And then after he'd had some meetings with him, I was to meet with the psychiatrist. And he was to help me in being a better pastor working with this young man. So that's exactly what happened. And after some weeks, I went into the psychiatrist's office, and I sat there in his consulting room waiting for him to come in. And the first thing he said to me was, "I understand we're here to visit about that homosexual young man you've been counseling with." Homosexual young man? We had never talked about sex. To this day, I don't believe there was anything overtly sexual going on at that time between those two guys. But I was so ignorant, I did not understand that this guy was in love with this other fellow. I had no understanding of sexual orientation. And one thing that has become I mentioned this, very important to me as I've tried to deal with these questions, is that sexual orientation is not just a matter of specific genital sexual activity or desire. When we, as heterosexual people, when we fall in love with somebody, there is, I think, very likely a specific sexual dimension to that. But it is affectional, it is love, it is caring, it is the deepest kind of experience you can have in relating to another human being. And I think that's very important for us to remember in terms of talking about gay and lesbian people. We think all they're involved in is some kind of endless sex orgy. This is a dimension of love and caring, and I think that some of these defense of marriage amendments and all this kind of stuff, they're anti-love amendments that are based upon profound misunderstanding of what is involved in these kinds of relationships. Anyway, experiences like that were the beginning of a long adventure for me in meeting gay and lesbian people, and I'm tremendously grateful for many, many gay and lesbian people who have helped me to reduce my ignorance. It's not all gone, I'm sure. This is a very complex subject. But I certainly, I think, understand and see some things now that I certainly did not see before. I've also tried to read and to study and to get some understanding of all of this. And I've learned that gay and lesbian people tell me, just as I just told you, I did not choose my orientation. They don't choose their orientation either. This is something they also discover. They discover, if they're strongly oriented in a gay or lesbian way, that they are sexually attracted almost exclusively to people of the same sex, just as those of us who are heterosexual are primarily attracted to people of the opposite sex. In our culture and society, that's often a very frightening and horrifying discovery. And many of them have tried all kinds of things to do to change, whether psychotherapy or prayer or healing or whatever. And they have learned this is a part of who they are as human beings. This is a diversity within God's creation. Now, as I got to know these people, I think that it helped me very much to overcome what is called homophobia. I don't think I have fear or hatred of gay and lesbian people. I think I hope I'm free from that. But I must confess that I had a problem when my gay and lesbian friends tell me that gay is good. I wouldn't change if I could change. And in hearing that kind of talk and pursuing it, I learned that I am, if I would confess myself, I'm reaching for a book under here, I am a not homophobic, but I'm heterosexist. I have a bias in favor of heterosexuality. I'm just confessing that now. That it's hard for me to understand why would someone who is homosexual not wish to change if they could change. Now, I was helped to get an answer to that question by a book by Oliver Sacks. I don't know if you've read any of his stuff. The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, and he's a neurologist, very interesting writer. He has a book, An Anthropologist on Mars, in which he tells a story about a colorblind painter. This was an artist, painted beautiful, colorful pictures, was in a car accident. He lost his color vision. He became totally and completely colorblind. It was a devastating experience for him. Everything is black and white and gray. He took to eating cottage cheese and black olives because they looked right. Everything else looked wrong. He thought he should get a Dalmatian because the dog would look right. It was a very difficult time for him, and they tried all kinds of stuff to see if he could change, to get his vision back. Nothing worked. But little by little, as time went on, he began to see things in a different way. He saw tone and texture. He began to paint again. The world again became beautiful for him.